One question, two answers, three takeaways. This is The Process with Brad Borland and Mike McKinnis. All right, in a previous episode, we talked a little bit about developing habits, developing self-discipline, things like that. And I think this episode is sort of a kind of a good part two to that, right? We're going to talk about motivation. So, assuming you've kind of developed some self-discipline, some willpower, some habits, you're getting to the gym on a regular basis, eventually you're going to run into some walls, some challenges, some bumps in the road. And this one is all about how to stay motivated. I don't care who you are. I've lacked motivation sometimes, every now and then. Depends, life hits you. Um, or I get a little burnt out. I might overtrain a little bit. I need to take a little bit of a break and get that motivation back eventually. So I wanted to kind of bring it up to you, Mike, about some of your thoughts on how to stay motivated and how do you break things down in sort of simpler terms or
Yeah,
simpler principles so it's not so daunting and overwhelming.
right. Yeah, a couple things. First thing that I always ask myself, why did you start working out in the first place? I think every single person who goes to the gym needs to remember, why did you show up? You and I have talked about this many times. You started working out. You were tall and thin and wanted to put on muscle, and eventually compete, things like that. I started working out for sports, and then, you know, I wanted to be like Arnold. He was my idol, or it still is. So I think always got to remember what made you start. And when you get in those phases where, you know, because I always say it's like climbing a flight of stairs. Like you're going to make some gains. You're going to be, you know, satisfied with your workouts. You're feeling great, and then you'll level off, and then you may get frustrated. And things may happen, but you've got to stay focused on why you did it. And I'm big on setting goals. Goals really help you stay motivated and focused too. Short term and long term goals.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember you mentioned how we both started, and it kind of took me back a little bit because at first it was to add muscle, and then it was to compete, and then
Hmm.
after competition was over, my competitive days, whatever, that motivation just kind of stayed with me. It changed a little bit. Of course, your priorities and your goals change because I
Hmm.
wasn't going to get on stage anymore and have to try my best to craft this perfect body on stage or whatever.
Right,
So it
right.
was a little less um, important, I guess, to have everything so perfect. Um, but yeah, it's like you had kind of briefly mentioned short term and long term. So a lot of my short term, I would think like, okay, add some muscle, compete
Hmm.
in this show. Those are some more short term goals. But my long term was to kind of keep going with it,
Yeah,
until they drag me out of the gym, so to speak. Could you talk a little bit more about that, sort of the differences, some examples?
sure. Well, when I think of short term goals, and I'm not just talking about myself, I'm talking about anybody that goes to the gym. Let's say you're new to the gym. Maybe you want to lose some weight, gain a little muscle. Maybe you want to start incorporating cardio into your routine, for heart health, circulation, things like that. Um, Maybe one of your short term goals is try to eat clean, try to improve your diet, or or really, and this is a big one to me, just show up at the gym. Just be regular. Like, don't just go once a month, go a couple times a week, maybe three times a week. But to me, those are short-term goals, and they don't sound like they're these, you know, earth-shattering things, but they're the little things that everybody needs to focus on and do. Um, I think long term, at least for me, it's like I still set short-term goals for myself all the time. But my long-term goal, at this stage of my life, is just to be the absolute best that I can be. And it sounds kind of corny, but it's the truth. You know, I'm I'm 54 now. I can't work out like I did in my 20s or 30s, but my long-term goal is to be able to work hard and do this the rest of my life because I love it. It's in my blood. It's what I do. Um, but I stay focused on what I want to attain. I want to be that 80-year-old that's still going to the gym and still, you know, running circles around the younger guys in there, but
Yeah.
you have to have short-term goals to get you there.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think when you were talking about the differences is like short term. Uh, you know, I think of sort of not the weather seasons, but I kind of think of my year as like seasons in a way. Like I
Hmm.
have you're going to work out a little differently during the winter time, maybe a little differently during the summer, or
Yeah,
you're super busy at work. That's a different kind of season, or something, in your personal life is kind of in an upheaval. So you have sort of these like little maintenance periods, or you have certain seasons where you like are killing it and making great
yeah,
progress and strides and stuff like that. So I kind of like I look at that like as sort of my some of my short term stuff. It kind of gives me a little bit ease of mind, so I'm not pedal to the metal 12 months a year because
yeah.
I don't even want to do that. I
Right, right.
want to kind of back off a little bit sometimes and just maintain maybe for a few weeks or months. Um, but that all depends on what's going on in stress levels. But long term, you know, um, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is just being able to, again, it like you said, it sounds corny, but it is to be your best self. And when I was younger, it was like I was comparing myself to some of the bodybuilders I idolized, and and some of the ones I was competing against in the natural circuit. And but I don't have that now. It's just more about me against me in a
Yeah,
way. But it's a friendly competition.
yeah.
but uh,
Right.
but I'm very comfortable with my limitations and my talents and my strengths and weaknesses and things. And if I
Yeah.
can improve this 1% or this 1%, I'm really happy about that. And I think that, like you said, it's like from years and years and years of training, you kind of learn that about yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you really do, and I like what you said about competing against yourself because I have that mentality every day. Like, when I did my workout this morning, I was doing a shoulder workout, and with my new routine where I'm lifting a little heavier, but lower reps and it's very slow cadence. It's difficult to get more reps. Like you pretty much reach where you are, and it's really hard to get one more. With a certain exercise, I've been getting about 8 reps at for the last month. Well, today I got 9,
Yeah.
and obviously we've talked about in previous episodes. I'm training to failure, which basically you can't do anymore. But I got that extra rep on this one exercise today, so that was a short-term goal. It's like, okay, this is progress. I'm stepping my game up, and you know, I'm another thing as far as motivation. I believe in tracking your progress. Whether it's like the example I just gave, squeezing one more rep out, or maybe tracking your body fat percentage, or your weight if you're trying to lose weight, or you know, just overall appearance, muscle mass. You know, um, if you're not tracking what you're doing, you don't know if you're having any
Mhm.
progress. And once you see the progress, whether it's on paper or from the mirror, that is a great motivational tool because you're like, hey, this is working. This coming to the gym is working for me. So it makes me want to work harder. Like now, I got 9 reps on this one. So now I'm thinking I cannot wait until I can work up to 10. You know,
Yeah, and I can't emphasize enough. A lot of people want to see huge leaps in progress,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
can't emphasize enough how much a rep extra will do. If
Hmm.
think about it, if you do one extra rep every few weeks on something, then that's amazing progress in 6 months.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And your body will respond to that.
yeah.
And in other words, don't like shortchange that. Don't belittle those tiny
Mm.
little wins. Because I'm like you, if I get an extra rep on something, I'm like, wow, or an extra 5 pounds on the bar or whatever the
Yeah,
case may be. But with that said, though, I'm not there to power lift. I'm not there just to lift the gym and press everybody. That's not the goal. But the
yeah,
goal is to make these tiny, tiny, tiny little progressions most weeks.
Yeah.
you know?
Well, because the small victories, like we were just talking about, eventually they add up to a big gain.
Right.
Okay, so you're just chipping away. It's like a sculptor with his, chipping away at the stone. Next thing you know, you've got a
Yeah.
beautiful sculpture. It's the little things that matter. But that's why I like to focus on the short term goals, because I know that every short term goal that I attain, it's getting me one step closer to that long term goal.
Hmm.
Of being the absolute best that I can be at whatever stage of life that I'm in.
Yeah, could you imagine somebody climbing Mount Everest and then after 10 steps they're like, "Ah, I'm never going to get there."
Yeah, it's too far. Well, and it's funny. I was telling somebody not too long ago, they were very overwhelmed with something and very worked up and anxious. And I said, "Let me ask you a question. How do you eat an elephant?"
Yeah.
And they looked at me like I was crazy. I said, "One bite at a time."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
think about that. You're not just gonna grab an elephant and just go to town on him. You're gonna have to chip away. And a lot of times people think of the end result, but they don't think about what it takes to get there.
Mm.
And we always call this a process. You and I have said it for years. Working out and your fitness goals are a process. There's no quick and easy fix. There's no magic pill. There's no, you know, you can't find a genie in the lamp and say, "Hey, make me this great physique." It's not like that. It takes time, and you just have to just make little steps every day.
Well, and the thing is too, and I hope everybody can get to this point eventually, is I legitimately enjoy the process.
Yeah,
I legitimately, and I don't go in there like I'm going into combat and I'm waging war on the way. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not the
right,
high, that the screamer and that makes this,
right.
But in my head, I love going in there and just challenging myself, like I said, competing against yourself and just making that like one extra rep.
Hmm.
And to me, that's like, I don't know. You could have a kind of a crappy day at work, not get much done, just you're busy but didn't get much done, those days.
Yeah,
And going around in circles. But I get to go to the gym and I get to kind of call the shots and I get to
hmm,
really enjoy it, whether I make an extra rep or an extra 5 pounds on the bar, whatever the case may be. So I
yeah.
think that enjoyment is really an important piece.
Well, you have to enjoy the process. I mean, you've got to look forward to going to the gym. And a couple things that you can also help with motivation is, make your workouts fun. Like, do things that you enjoy doing. Um, I think that's really important. And really, and again, this sounds so, I guess, corny too, but stay positive. When every time I go to the gym, I'm happy to be there, but I'm thinking, when I walk in, I'm thinking I'm gonna have a great workout today, and 99% of the time I do. Uh, but stay positive and keep, and that helps you stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think of some people might think I'm kind of crazy for loving some of the things that I do in the gym. Like I love any kind of pull up or chin up.
Oh yeah,
I love them. They're challenging. They're hard.
yeah,
They are, but they're so rewarding. It's kind of like a love hate thing.
yeah,
But it's one of those exercises, and I'm just throwing this out there as an example because we all have our favorite things we do, right? But I absolutely love doing chin ups. I don't know why,
yeah.
but I just do.
And,
Like you
and
said, they're tough, but I love
they
them.
are. And what's funny is most people. Well, let's put it this way. I bet when you're at the gym and you want to do some chin ups, you rarely have to wait for somebody to get off the chair. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're hard. And the fact that you have taken something that's difficult and made it something that you love doing, that's really cool. And,
Yeah,
you look forward to doing them.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I guess I'm weird, but
No, man, you're talking to the right person, because I have plenty of things like that. Like we've talked about many times. My favorite exercise has always been squats, and I'm
mm,
talking
mm,
real squats though, like go all the way down, all the way up. And I don't think you see too many people that look forward to leg day.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
always been my favorite workout of the week, you know?
Yeah. I always say do leg days on Mondays because there's nobody on not on the equipment. So,
That's right. That's right.
so to wrap it up, what are three takeaways people can get out of this to help them stay motivated?
I think one of the most important ones is set goals. Like we're talking about, set short-term goals for yourself and long-term. And when you accomplish some of these goals, all right, they're done. Move on to add more. Add another goal. You always want to keep working towards something. Um, I think another important thing is measuring your progress. Like I was saying, that's is it, your body fat percentage going down? Have you put on some muscle? Are you getting a little stronger at certain things? Are you able to do more reps with certain things? But track your progress. And one thing I forgot to add earlier, in my attic, I have a huge storage bin with probably, I don't even know how many spiral notebooks from
Mhm.
back in the 90s. I have every workout written down and everything I ate that day.
I do too.
Yeah. So, but yeah, measure your progress. That's so important, and it can keep you focused. And really, the last thing is, hey, trust the process. This is not a quick, instant gratification thing. Okay, it's a lifestyle. And once you accept that, hey, this is what I really want to do, you make it a part of your lifestyle. And you've heard me say it a million times. It gets in your blood, and it turns into something that you have to do.
Yeah, with that last point, I just wanted to add it's important to realize that your training program or whatever you're doing isn't some kind of hat trick. It's not some sort of mechanism that you just press a button and it works.
Right.
Like you said, you have to be within it. You have to put the process into practice. You have to like live and breathe it and work hard at it.
That's right.
In other words, it's not like something that you just kind of like go at the store and buy. Hey, I got my gains.
Yeah.
You
It,
know?
it just doesn't work that
Yeah,
way.
it's like you have to like literally live it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't help but add that in there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
no, but that's great. Yeah. So guys, take some advice to set short-term and long-term goals and stay motivated out there. And with that said, we are out.